Russian Revolution. Introduction. In the 19th century, during the period of Tsar of Romanov Dynasty, political, social and economic conditions declined in Russia. At the beginning of 20th century, Tsar's empire spread on large area. There was unequal social condition due to feudalism and serfdom. Common people were living in miserable condition. Russia. Russian Revolution. Learning objective. At the end of this chapter, you will be able to explain the situation of Russia at the threshold of revolution, enumerate the Bloody Sunday incident, cite Lenin's new economic policy, appreciate the significance of Russian Revolution. Background. Russian Revolution is a turning point in the history of the world. In the 19th century, during the period of Tsar of Romanov Dynasty, political, social and economic conditions deteriorated in Russia. At the beginning of 20th century, Tsar's empire expanded to huge area. Social condition was not uniform. Due to feudalism and serfdom, common people were living in terrible condition. Compared to other European nations, the industrial development of Russia was of poor quality. The capitalists held the Russian industries and exploited the workers. Quality production was lacking due to absence of advanced technology. This resulted in the decline of Russian economic condition. Russia at the threshold of revolution. In the middle of the 19th century, revolutionary thoughts began to spread in Russia. The youngest generation thought to oppose the political, social and economic exploitation. Russian writers and thinkers such as Alexander Pushkin, Dostoevsky, Leo Tolstoy, Maxim Gorky, etc., supported liberalism in their work. At the same time, nihilist thinkers wanted total freedom from government, religion, marriage and ethics. Karl Marx, 1818-1883. In the Russian Revolution, 1917, the communist philosophy of Karl Marx played a major role. He was a German communist thinker who wrote Das Kapital and Communist Manifesto. In 1848, Friedrich Engels and Karl Marx published Manifesto of Communism. Marx did a scientific analysis of human social development. He gave communist doctrines for establishing a social system free from exploitation and social inequalities. He believed that human society is dynamic and progressive. Social class having the means of production exploited the poor people. So, the groups of haves and have-not come into existence in the society. Haves owned the means of production, while haves-not had nothing. This second class was made up of workers and poor farmers. According to Marx, the change should be brought in the economic system of society. Along with economic system, there shall be alteration in social customs and values. So, he appealed that to bring a social change, the second class in the world should be organized. Thus, the argument between these two groups strengthened, and Russian Revolution witnessed a conflict between the Tsar and his rich supporters on the one hand, and the workers and farmers on the other. Despotic rule in Russia. Before the Russian Revolution, it was ruled by Romanov Dynasty for 3 centuries. The Russian kings called Tsars were despotic rulers and opposed liberal and progressive ideology. They destroyed the hopes and aspirations of citizens. Although Russia had strong empire, they did not pay any heed to internal development of their country. Hence, there was no significant progress of the nation as a whole. During Tsar's rule, even though there was industrial development, it could not satisfy the needs of common people. The workers were distressed by unfavorable working conditions. Still, agriculture had been the backbone of Russian economy. in Russia feudalism and bonded labor existed. Their life was miserable. Old and improper facilities hampered the agriculture. The farmers insisted on more land for farming due to increase in demand for food grains, but the government always opposed reformative demands. So, finally, in 1898, various organizations got united as the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party. This initiated the feeling of unrest among people against Tsar's policy. The drought of 1905 in Russia had made the people helpless. In the war of 1904 and 5 was Japan defeated Russia. This created anti-Tsar climate in Russia. The war had weakened the Russian economy. Father Gapin. With the help of workers, the common people and intellectuals revolted against royal reign. The Tsar soldiers attacked the revolting people, causing loss of human life. This event happened on Sunday in 1905, so it was called the Bloody Sunday. Revolt at St. Petersburg in the middle of October 1905. Entire Russia witnessed workers' strike. The workers' leaders got together at St. Petersburg and set up a central board with a view to directing workers and creating a kind of cohesion unity in their protest. This was called St. Petersburg Soviet. The fundamental rights, that is, the right to vote, to hold national elections, special rights to the National Legislative Council were guaranteed by Tsar Nicholas II to the people. Duma dissolved. Later, in 1906, Duma, Russian Parliament, was elected. As discussions taken by Duma was not accepted by Tsar, the first Duma was dissolved. The second Duma after re-election was too dissolved by Tsar on the grounds of differences between the members. The third Duma became a Tsar puppet. In the following years, Duma was made a part of paper. The democratic experiment in Russia failed and revolution followed. The Rasputin factor. There was political unrest in Russia. The World War began in Europe by 1914. The attack of Germany on Russia pulled Russia into the war. Russia withdrew itself due to lack of arms and ammunition. It was thought that pitiful condition of Russia was the outcome of the deeds of Tsarina Alexandra and her close advisor Rasputin, a Serbian monk. The key appointments to the court were done as per Rasputin's approval. So, due to increased importance of Rasputin, the courtiers killed him. Course of revolution. In January and February 1917, the worker and soldiers came together and rose against government. It was until Tsar campaigning that increased pressure on king to give up power. Eventually, on March 15, 1917, Tsar left the throne. After that, moderate leaders formed the Provisional Government, which had representatives of landowners, capitalists, industrialists and business persons. It was Kerensky, the leader of the moderate Menshevik group, who led the government. The Russian forces lacked sufficient weapons. Gradually, common man lost confidence in government. In April 1917, Lenin, under exile in Switzerland, returned to Russia. There was a big clash between Lenin and Menshevik leader Kerensky. So the Kerensky government was removed by Bolshevik on 7th November 1917 and Russian Revolution was concluded. Russia at the threshold of revolution. Lenin was an extremist and followed Marxist philosophy. He strongly believed that progress of the Russians will be possible if feudalism, land slavery and Tsar rule were destroyed. Business and industry were seized and nationalized. Thus, big landowners were deprived of their land and the land was distributed equally. Various industries were run and sponsored by government. In place of wages in money, workers were offered accommodation, food, clothing and other facilities. Thus, a communist government started taking shape in Russia. Private property was confiscated and business and industry were nationalized. Big landowners were deprived of their land and there was an equal distribution of land for all. The government sponsored and ran various industries. Lenin believed that the government must have domination of the working class. The workers were given accommodation, food, clothing, and other facilities instead of wages in money. Thus, a communist government was formed in Russia. Lenin's New Economic Policy, NEP. Lenin declared a new economic policy that had both privatization and nationalization. The private industry, business and property were permitted only to a limit, but this was opposed by extremist communist leaders. So, a temporary compromise with the capitalist principles was made by Lenin. Agriculture and industrial production was increased due to new economic policy. More land became available for farming. Private industries were allowed to buy and sell their products in the open market in small amount only. However, government took control of transportation and external trade. The new policy motivated industrial production. Hence, Lenin, a revolutionary and founder of the first communist government in the world, has a remarkable contribution to world history. Collective farming, open market, new currency, small and large-scale industries. Significance of Russian Revolution. This holds a great place in history of modern world as it was the first revolution inspired by philosophy of Karl Marx. The working class gained immense importance which directed the world to initiate social development through economic planning. It was an attempt to create a social order without religion, class and exploitation. The concept of welfare state was accepted everywhere in the world. The message of total freedom from all sorts of restrictions was given. It brought about fundamental changes in political, social, economic, cultural and scientific fields of Russia. Russian Revolution proved to be a boon for many countries in the world. A new form of governance and communism was created, and Russia led nations belonging to Eastern Hemisphere. The Russian Revolution made deep impact on world history. The revolution set up principles of equality, cooperation, and universal association. Summary: you have learnt the situation of Russia at the threshold of revolution, the Bloody Sunday incident, Lenin's new economic policy, significance of Russian Revolution.